Have you ever watched a massive container ship pulling into port and thought, how does that thing actually stop? There are no brake pedals, no emergency levers, no friction pads clamping down on a wheel. And yet, a vessel the size of a skyscraper, moving through the open ocean, comes to a precise, controlled stop right where it needs to be, every single time. Today we're breaking down exactly how ships stop. And I promise, after this video, you'll never watch a ship pull into port the same way again. Let's start with the scale problem, because until you feel how big these machines actually are, nothing else makes sense. The Ever Given. You probably remember it. The container ship that got stuck in the Suez Canal in 2021. That ship was 400 meters long. It weighed over 200,000 metric tons, fully loaded. 200,000 metric tons. Let that number sit for a second. That's roughly the same as the Empire State, the entire Empire State Building. Not just the steel frame, not just the concrete floors, the whole thing, every bolt, every pane of glass, every elevator cable, all of it, moving through open water at around 22 kilometers per hour. Now imagine trying to stop the Empire State Building. That's not a metaphor. That's the actual engineering challenge that port pilots face every single day, at harbors all over the world, in all kinds of weather, often in the middle of the night. And here's the part that stops most people cold. There is no single braking moment. No dramatic instant where someone slams a lever and the ship grinds to a halt. Stopping a large vessel is a process. A long, carefully managed, physics-driven process that begins miles out at sea and unfolds over the better part of an hour, sometimes longer. Think about that. An hour of controlled, deliberate deceleration just to park a ship. Most people assume there must be some kind of hidden mechanical system. A massive underwater brake, a drag device, something that does the heavy lifting all at once. There isn't. What actually happens is far more interesting and far more dependent on understanding the ocean itself as a tool. Here is why conventional braking is simply impossible at this scale. Physics. A moving object's kinetic energy scales with its mass and the square of its velocity. A 200,000-ton ship moving at 22 kilometers per hour carries momentum so large it is almost impossible to put into human terms. So let's try. Imagine a fully loaded freight train, one of those long, heavy coal trains that stretches so far you can't see the end of it. Now put that freight train on ice. No friction beneath the wheels, no grip, just mass and momentum. You can apply force all you want. The mass wins, every time. A supertanker in open water is that freight train, except heavier. And the ice is the ocean, which does resist, but slowly, gradually, over enormous distances. That resistance is actually the first and most important braking system of all, and it's been working the entire voyage. Water drag across a ship's hull is constant and relentless. The hull of a large container ship below the waterline has a surface area larger than several football fields. Every square meter of that hull is pushing against water at every moment of every voyage. Water is 800 times denser than air. Moving through it at speed costs enormous energy. And the moment that energy source, the engine, cuts back, the ocean starts winning. So the stopping process begins miles out, far earlier than most people would ever guess. The harbor pilot boards the vessel from a small pilot boat, climbing a rope ladder up the side of the hull while both vessels are still moving. That detail alone tells you something about the scale of what is happening. The pilot boat looks like a rubber duck next to a bathtub toy next to the actual ship. Once on the bridge, the pilot works with the captain to begin the approach. The engine telegraph moves through its positions. Full ahead becomes slow ahead. Slow ahead becomes dead slow, and then stop. The main engine, often a two-stroke diesel unit so large it has internal staircases and maintenance walkways, cuts its drive to the propeller. the ship begins to coast. This is coasting in a very different way than a bicycle coasts downhill. This is coasting against the constant, enormous resistance of the ocean. Speed bleeds off, not dramatically, not in seconds, but steadily, kilometer by kilometer. The numbers on the speed display on the bridge begin to drop. This is the moment that challenges what most people assume. The ship is already braking. It has been braking the entire time. Water resistance does not switch on when the engine cuts. It was always there, pushing back against every meter of forward motion. The ocean is the first braking system, and it is the largest one. Now the engineering gets genuinely dramatic. At a certain point in the approach, the bridge gives a new command: full astern. The propeller, which has been driving the ship forward through the entire voyage, begins to spin in the opposite direction. And this is nothing like shifting a car into reverse. The main propeller on a large Panamax bulk carrier is often 8 to 9 meters in diameter. Each blade is a curved slab of bronze alloy, individually weighing several tons. When that propeller reverses, it is not just changing direction. It is generating massive backward thrust directly against tens of thousands of tons of forward momentum. The water behind the stern erupts into white churning foam. The hull vibrates through its entire length. Officers on the bridge feel it in their feet. Coffee cups rattle in the galley 6 decks below, and the ship still takes several minutes and a significant distance to fully respond. That is not a flaw. That is physics being honest about mass. Reversed propulsion is powerful. On a large vessel, going from full ahead to full astern is called a crash stop, and it is one of the most violent maneuvers a ship can perform. Even in a crash stop, a fully loaded supertanker can take 3 kilometers or more to come to a complete halt. 3 kilometers. That is longer than many airport runways. In a controlled harbor approach, reversed thrust is used carefully and progressively, dialed in by the pilot to manage speed across the final kilometers of approach without overstressing the engine or the drivetrain. But reversed engines alone cannot bring a ship to a safe stop in close quarters, not with a concrete dock 50 meters away and a harbor full of other vessels. That is where the anchor becomes something most people never expect it to be. Most people picture an anchor as a parking device, something you drop when you want to stay in one place. And that is true in calm anchorages. But in a controlled port approach, a ship's anchor can be used as a dynamic braking tool. Let out on a controlled run, the anchor chain drags across the seabed. The chain is not light. On a large vessel, anchor chain can weigh 300 kilograms per meter or more. When you run out 100 to 200 meters of chain across the harbor floor, the friction is enormous. It is raw, grinding, physical resistance, converting forward momentum into heat and sound, and leaving a long scar across the seafloor sediment. It is not elegant. It is not high-tech. It is mass and friction doing what mass and friction do. But at the right moment, deployed by an experienced pilot who knows the harbor floor, the tides, and the ship's exact weight and speed, it is extraordinarily effective. Even with the engine reversed, the anchor dragging, and the ocean pushing back against every square meter of hull, the vessel remains the size of a city block. It still has to be guided into a berth, sometimes with less than a meter of clearance on either side. That is where the tugboats take over. Tugboats look almost comically small next to a vessel like the MSC Golson, or a fully loaded very large crude carrier. These ships are over 300 meters long. A standard harbor tugboat is maybe 30 meters, 1/10 the length, roughly the size of the larger ship's anchor chain locker. And yet a fleet of 4 to 6 of these small, immensely powerful boats will physically wrestle the giant vessel into its berth, with a precision that seems almost impossible given the forces involved. Modern harbor tugs use azimuth thrusters, propulsion units that rotate 360 degrees, giving them the ability to push or pull in any direction instantly. They attach to the ship at the bow and stern with heavy lines, and then they begin the final act of the whole process. One pushes at the port bow, one pulls at the starboard quarter, another holds the stern off a navigation buoy. The harbor pilot on the bridge of the main vessel gives commands over radio. The tug captains respond in seconds. Wind is pushing the bow off course. The tide is running against the stern. The dock is coming closer. It is coordination on an extraordinary scale. A slow, grinding, high-stakes ballet between machines of wildly different sizes, all working toward a single outcome, getting this enormous vessel to rest against rubber dock fenders with barely a bump. The mooring lines go out. Dock workers loop them over bollards. Winches on deck take up the slack. The ship settles. The engines are secured. The anchor, if used, is recovered. A vessel that was crossing open ocean 24 hours ago is now sitting still, loading cranes already moving into position overhead. No brakes, no single dramatic moment. Just physics managed intelligently across time, distance, and the combined knowledge of pilots, engineers, and tugboat captains who do this every single day. Water resistance, reduced throttle, reversed thrust, anchor drag, tugboat force. Each one layered on top of the last. Each one handling what the previous system couldn't do alone. It's not brute force. It's engineering that works with the laws of nature instead of fighting them. That makes me wonder about something else entirely. If docking a 400-meter ship in a busy harbor sounds precise, try imagining that same ship threading through the Panama Canal, where the gap between the hull and the canal wall is sometimes less than 60 centimeters on either side, with no room to maneuver and no margin for error. How does that actually work? How do ships navigate passages that seem physically impossible for their size? Subscribe, and that's exactly what we're breaking down next.